Hey, want to buy some coilovers? Because I just bought some coilovers. And I want to tell you about all the research I did. In all seriousness, I do want to tell you about the research I did before buying these coilovers. When I started looking into coilovers, I didn't realize how many differences there were, ranging from $300 coilovers to $6,000 coilovers. I was overwhelmed in all the research I should do and what I should look at, so what I did was put together 10 categories that I think highlight the biggest differences between coilovers. That way you can look at the categories, see if there's something you care about, and then if you don't care about them, you don't need to look for that. Before we go over differences of coilovers that I looked into, let's go over a coilover and the different parts behind it. If you already know what a coilover is and how it works, feel free to use the chapters ahead to skip to whatever part you're interested in. So here's the Fortune Auto 510 coilover. We're going to quickly go over these parts. Don't worry if they don't sound familiar or you don't know what they are. We're going to go into them in detail as we go through the differences later in the video. So the main two pieces in a coilover is the spring and the damper. The spring is responsible for controlling how much force it takes to actually compress this. The damper is in charge of how fast this will compress. We'll get into both those later, talking about rebound and compression. We have the top hat. This is the piece that mounts to the vehicle. They can also be used to control camber. We have the body, which in this one, it has a lower nut and an upper nut. The upper nut's going to control the preload, and then the lower nut's going to control the ride height separately. Now, since we went over a coilover, we're going to jump into 10 things I looked at before buying these. They are ranked by number 1 being the thing that I think everybody's going to look at, and then as we get 10, it's going to be more if you care about tuning and performance in a track-focused car. So if you only care about slamming your car to the ground and ride quality isn't something you care about, you're probably not going to care about all 10. But if you're looking to have a track car, stick around for all 10. So let's jump into the first thing, and that's why most people buy this, is adjustable ride height. First thing I looked at when buying a coilover is a coilover that had the preload adjustable separate from the ride height. If you don't get it this way, then you're going to have to adjust the ride height through the preload, and as you lower the car, you're going to reduce the suspension travel, overall leading to a harsher ride. The second thing I would look at is camber plates. So these are for the rear of the car, they don't have them, but for the front of the car, they do come with camber plates. I'll mention these because, one, they're great for adjusting during a track day to set the camber, but also if you don't care about track days and you just want to lower your car, they're nice to camber back the wheels and tuck them up under the fenders. The third thing I looked at is spring rate. We talked about the spring being part of the coilover. The spring has a rating, and it's rating by how much weight it takes to compress it an inch. So these are rated at 8K or 450 pounds. Pressure will compress this an inch. Why that's important is because you want to get a spring rate for whatever you're doing. If you're daily driving the car, the spring rate's going to be lower. If you're tracking the car, the spring rate's going to be higher. What I did and what I would recommend you do is go and look on forums online, see what people recommend for your car and how you're going to be using it, and go with those as a starting point. The fourth thing we're going to look up is tube design, and that resides within the damper. So the two kinds of tubes are twin tube or mono tube design. At a high level, a twin tube is more cost effective, and a mono tube is a little bit more expensive, but better for performance. Why that is because a mono tube keeps the air and the fluid separate, while the twin tube doesn't. What that means is over time, pushing the car hard, the air and the fluid can mix, versus the mono tube, which has them completely separate. With that being said, why I have these so low on the list is if you're just looking to slam the car, then you probably save some money going by a twin tube design, or if you have a car with high mileage, then you might also want to go with the twin tube design. At number 5, halfway down the list, is warranty. Why I mention this is because there was such a drastic difference in the warranties I looked at. I chose to go with Fortune Auto, which has a 5-year warranty, compared to BC Racing, which has a 1-year warranty. So just something to keep your eye on. For 6, I have modularity and when to revalve. So it's kind of 2 sections listed under 1. Modularity because it's somewhat of a unicorn. With the Fortune 500 shocks, I could have went with a 500, and then when I was ready to upgrade to the 510, which are more track capable, so if I had a daily driver that I just wanted to lower, I might have went with the 500s, and then eventually if I was going to make it a track car, I'd upgrade to the 510s. Normally you would have to buy brand new coilovers, as where Fortune Auto lets you send these in, they rebuild them, they upgrade them, and you only pay the difference. So now the second part of that is when to revalve. Another nice thing about these Fortune Auto 510s is that they can withstand 8K of spring changing. So most coilovers, if you adjust your spring rate by 2K, you have to get the damper revalved. Whereas with the Fortune Autos, I can go within 8K and not need this revalve. So I have 8K right now. If I find out it's too soft and I want to upgrade to 10K, all I need to do is take this apart, throw a new spring on it, and I don't need to send my damper in to get revalved. Before we jump into the next section, let's talk a little bit about rebound and compression. So compression is whenever there's weight or force put on this and it compresses, and rebound is the opposite direction where it returns back to its original state. So rebound and compression are ultimately responsible for keeping your tires on the track at all time. That's whether you're going around a turn and your car is leaning a little bit, or you're going over a brim or hitting a pothole and the tire lifts off the ground real quick, and the job is to get it back on the ground to continue providing that power to the ground. Now, a little bit more technical on the list is how many ways of adjustability it has. These coilovers have one-way adjustability, which means it has one knob and it controls both rebound and compression. So as you get into two-way, three-way, and four-way, it allows you to control rebound and compression separately. Then you can also control rebound and compression separately at both high speed and at low speed. Next, we're going to talk about piston type. The two types I'm going to talk about are digressive and linear, and I'm going to use this graph up here to help me explain it. So this graph is velocity plotted against force. So how fast versus how much force it's going to be met with. Now the two types we're going to talk about are linear, and that is as force is applied faster, so as velocity increases, force also increases. And the other one is digressive, which you can see at a low speed is met with a lot more force, whereas a high speed that force tapers off. In my research, what I found is digressive are better suited for track cars and linear are better suited for daily drivers. Why that is because the difference in force at a low speed. So at a low speed, you're going to be met with a lot more force in a digressive piston. This is great if you want your car to feel stable and sturdy going around turns in a track. And to get that stability, you don't need to raise the high-speed force through the roof. Whereas if you had a linear piston, because the curve is linear, to get that low-speed force all the way up, you would have to put the high-speed force through the roof. For number 9, we're almost there. We're going to talk about spring upgrades. So you can either get the regular springs, and this is with Fortunato, this is with a lot of companies out there, that you can either get their springs, or you can upgrade to either Swift springs or Hyperco springs. I chose to upgrade to Swift springs. They're said to maintain their spring rate a lot longer and also to be a lot better of a spring overall. And last on the list, I have ranked budget. And yes, it is last on purpose because I really do think that you should go through the first 9 things and decide what you want to buy and then adjust things based on your budget versus if you just set a budget at X amount of dollars and you buy whatever is in that budget, you might be missing out on some features that you could have got for not a lot of increase in money. That's all for our video today. If you liked any little bit of this video, you should give it a thumbs up. If you want to see these actually installed on the WRX and me dialing these in, then you should subscribe for those future videos. It's on to the next project.